Hey, if you're a mom who finds motherhood particularly lonely, this video is for you. This video is no more fun to make as it is probably to live, much less watch. If you are watching this video, it's because you raised your hand to the question of, does motherhood feel lonely for you? Is your mom journey um, one that feels like you are just going it alone? And if there are people around you, they don't understand what you're going through. Been there, done that, and am still there at times. And so this video is to call out my people and say, hey, I see you. And to let you know that if you were under the impression that it's just you and everyone out here in these mom streets has their crew, they have their posse, and they're rolling deep. They're doing things together. They're gelling. They're understanding each other. They're relating on all the things, and they understand each other. That is true for some, but it's not true for all. It does not mean there's something wrong with you. There are a number of reasons why motherhood can feel lonely for a short period or for a long journey, a long portion of the journey. It could be that you are in a different stage of life than the people that you are closest to. You're a mom and they're not. And so they just don't get your unique experiences as a mother. It could be that you're a single mom and a lot of your friends are married moms. That's an entirely different dynamic. There are things that you have to consider that your married mom friends do not. That's just that's just the reality of the matter. And so as you go through those things, you are very aware that you're going through it by yourself. And even if you share it with them, they can have compassion, they can be sympathetic, but they don't really empathize because they don't get it. And the flip is true. If you're a married mom and you find yourself with a lot of friends who are single moms, then again, it's not that you don't have issues. We all have issues, but yours are of a very different dynamic than theirs. You are on your mom journey and you're also a wife. And there's that dance of managing your bandwidth, um, co-parenting in real time under the same roof, and the considerations that come with that your single mom friends don't understand because they don't have to deal with that. There's also logistics. If you are a military wife and are still active duty military wife, which I was in a season, a significant season of my marriage, that's a whole other universe. Like there are things that we deal with and consider that your average mom on the street has nothing to think about. This just is not considering. Never mind the nature of our husband's work, the kind of danger they can be called into, and and that being in the back of our minds all the time, especially when they're deployed. There's also whether or not you're living on base. And just by that, the variety of women you're exposed to are limited. Yes, the women who are there on base with you are in the same boat as you, but that doesn't mean that you're all going to gel. We're coming from all different parts of the country. We're moving every 2, 3, 4 years and starting over again, connecting with people in new places all of the time. And then if you find people that you connect with, in a year or two, you have to move again. And depending on where you're sent, the challenges of staying connected, uh, those are there. There's just a lot of things to consider and a lot of scenarios that lend itself to brief or extended seasons of loneliness. And when you're talking about being an intentional mom, as I do here, that's my jam, being a conscientious mom, putting thought into how I approach motherhood because I've thought about what I'm aiming for with my children. That just makes all of that more complicated because not all moms are thinking like that, number one. And if you find your people with all the scenarios, different scenarios I've mentioned, um, they may not be into that. And so there's a way that you do motherhood that if the people around you find strange or don't ascribe to, then then you feel like a woman by yourself on an island for that reason as well. And so the first thing I think that's important to remember when you are feeling particularly lonely, is to remember that you are not alone in your experience. You are not the only one who is having that experience. You're not odd, you're not weird, there's nothing wrong with you. Motherhood is in itself a unique journey for all of us because we are all different women. None of us are the same, and none of our children are the same. And oh my goodness, I didn't even mention moms who may have children with special needs, whether they're on the spectrum or they have a physical disability or a disease that can be debilitating. You, as that mother, are considering the health of your child on a level that other moms are not. And then that's isolating. So I think the way to um, manage, and I say manage because I don't know if you can completely eradicate the loneliness, but the way that you can manage it is to try to find your people. Um, I we talked about a bunch of different scenarios, but of course, if you are the mom of children who are differently abled, then to find groups where there are moms likewise and join them, and at least find um, women who are understanding, sympathetic to your journey in a way that your own extended family might be, your friend group may not be. That will go a long way to feeling like you're not the only one going through this experience. And then you can do that likewise if you're in the military. You know, your spouse, um, he will have friends, peers that he is working with. And if they have spouses, then there are situations on base, uh, organizations that exist for the purpose of bringing the spouses together, and you can participate in that. And then sometimes there is nothing that you can do to really change it at the moment. There's nothing external that you can do to change your circumstance, to suddenly surround yourself with people who are understanding and who know what it's like, or as close as possible to know what it's like to be in your shoes. And sometimes you just have to sit with that and just know that it will pass. Nothing is that way forever. Um, this is a season, it's an awkward season. But again, there's this question that always comes back to me. Ever since I've heard it, I realize how often I've had to refer to it. And it's, what does it make possible for you? What does this season of loneliness make possible for you? For me, I'm in a sort of lonely season myself right now. We are retired military, and so we are settled here in Texas and in a rather large city. And it is still difficult to connect with people. Part of it is age. When you get to be of a certain age, you have your people. And unless things fall apart with those people, you're not trying to make new friends. Let's just be clear. I'm not running around. I'm not a person who runs around trying to make new friends, but you want to have people that you can do life with on some level. Get together and shop with, get together and grab a bite to eat with. It doesn't have to be deep, but you just want to have people that you can do those things with. And it has been a challenge, even though we're not doing all the moving that we were doing. Just the nature, like depending on where you live, some places are just easier to get connected in than others. Community is the vibe of that town or that city. It's the way that it's structured. There's a lot of organizations that you can be a part of. Some places are like that, and then some places are very to themselves. They have their people. They don't they don't have a lot of opportunities where you are going to be mingling and meeting other people. And now that we're post COVID and we're all very comfortable online and just connecting from a distance, people are just more comfortable setting things up that way and defaulting to that. As an introvert, if I'm going to be bothered with people, I'd rather be bothered with you in person. If you're going to drain me, I'd rather it be in person and I get to experience all the richness of being with somebody in person and then be tired later rather than put all this energy into having to come across a certain way through the camera and making sure my what is it, your posturing or whatever comes across in a way that people are not misunderstanding you. That's a lot of energy that I'm just not into. And so I prefer things that are in person, but the world is not set up for that so much anymore. And so that's why, even though we have come out of that season where we were for real lonely because we were all in our homes locked down, it's why we're still battling loneliness, because the world has now been set up to sort of be prepared for anything else that pops off where we'll have to be isolated again or communicating through camera, through lenses. And so things have just sort of been left as that being the default. And so it's still challenging to connect with people if you're not part of uh, organizations from college. You're not part of a sorority, you're not part of a fraternity where you can, in your town, find the chapter and link up or any of those kinds of things. um, yeah, it can be more challenging now than ever to connect with people. And I would say to still continue to try and to be open, to be on the lookout for things that pop up. Um, but also, what does it make possible for you? What can, what are you discovering about yourself in this quiet when you don't have to consider other people and connect with other people all the time? When you're not busy in the face of other people, what are you learning about yourself? What are things that you have interests in that you've never pursued that now you have the time and the bandwidth to pursue? And so you can go on a personal growth journey. Um, Maybe it's time to consider having adventures on your own, learning what it's like to go and explore your town or your area, your city, and do what's there that tourists normally do that you don't because it's just where you live. But now you have an opportunity to, and instead of waiting for this group of people that you can get together and do that with, go ahead and do it. So that's personally just the woman in you who may feel lonely. But as a mom, I just encourage you to look around and see what other moms are going through what you're going through. You're scrolling on Instagram anyway. Go ahead and find, um, we have a woman here in my area who I met online who has a son with autism, and she has now built an entire community in this area, meeting the needs of other moms who have children with special needs because they are often isolated. um, some of the isolation is they're just so busy taking care of their child, they don't have time to look up and connect. And so, her being on Instagram and that being a place that they can all converge, and then from there, she has started a conference and all kinds of things. So, do that. Like, if you're going to be scrolling, scroll with a purpose, scroll with the intention of finding people who you relate to and seeing how you can migrate that connection from the online space into real life, because there's just there's a certain level of connection that really only happens face to face. That's just the fact of the matter. It doesn't matter what camera you have, what lens you put on it, what AI you use. At the end of the day, there is nothing like being in someone else's presence, sensing their mood, picking up on social cues that really only happen in person, and feeling like you can be vulnerable with that person and you can share things with them that you may not be able to share with anyone else because you get a sense that they would get it. That happens in person. And so, as much as you can shift if you find them online and see if you can connect in person, if there are local groups that make that possible, I encourage you to do so. But for me, in this season, where I don't have a ton of friends here, I know people all across the country. I've lived all around the country. And so I know plenty of people. I have friends around the country, but they're around the country. And so I don't get to see them with any frequency. And the depth of that relationship is not as deep as it could be because we're not in each other's lives in the day in and day out and really sharing um, what's going on, because we have proximity and we have the time to do that. And so and let me say this, you can be with a crew of people. You can also have people that you are doing life with. There's four or five of y'all that get together and you do all the things, and you can be lonely in that group because you are wearing a mask. You are trying to appear away. I don't know who this is for, but you're trying to appear away. You're trying to blend in to the things that they're talking about. The group dynamics is a whole thing, and nobody wants to be that one sticking out, having something else going on that no one else has going on. And so you put on your mask and you just smile and you talk about what they're talking about, because if you shifted the conversation to what's really on your heart and mind, it might be crickets. They may feel awkward because they don't know what to say, because they don't know what you're talking about. It's not something that they go through. And so you can feel lonely in a crowded room. So while there's a place for finding your people, if you feel lonely, finding people that you can be in group with, that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. At some point, enjoying your own company and exploring the possibilities with all this free time you have, there's something to be said for that. To crack open your journal and to write down how you're feeling. Write down what you're noticing about how you're moving through this, what you're noticing about yourself, what you become curious about and want to look into. This YouTube channel is part possible because of the time that I have and because of the opportunity I've had to reflect and think about the myriad of experiences I've had and how what I've experienced lends itself to be helpful to other people. This has come out of the reality of the fact that I don't have a ton of friends to run the city with. I have a couple of good girlfriends who also have lives, and life is busy for all of us. And so there's also that carving time out to get together has become harder and harder. But we do that, and we're, on the phone and all the things. But I have room and bandwidth. And now that my children are older and they're not requiring so much of my time, they're not needing me to do things for them, it has left me with the opportunity to say, okay, what does this make possible for me? And this channel has been part of that. I have always, my jam here. If this is your first time here on my channel and you've gotten this far in the video, love it. Thank you. Glad you're here. But just so you know, I I do this because I like instigating courageous conversations that give moms an opportunity to drop the mask and really be real about the things that we are dealing with, the things that we deal with that we don't talk about and tend to suffer in silence. I am over suffering in silence. I may not be able to do anything about the silence of loneliness, but I'm going to make it work for me. And so I guess that would just be the bottom line in this conversation is if it is what it is and you're finding yourself lonely in this season, you don't have a bevy of friends that you're hanging out with. You're looking on Instagram and you're seeing the posts about, oh, me and my girls, and that's just not where you're at. Okay, how can you make that work for you? Maybe it is that you want to go find your group of friends. Do that. But consider if this is actually an opportunity for you to become a better version of yourself, a richer, deeper version of yourself. I'm wearing this necklace. I love this necklace. My name happens to mean butterfly, and so butterflies are they're just special to me. But there's a whole process to becoming that butterfly. There's a whole process. And the beauty of the butterfly comes at the cost of spending time in that cocoon, dissolving the way it used to be, right? Like divorcing yourself and dissolving the way that you have seen yourself in the past, the way you have been, and being open to what's next. That beauty of the butterfly comes at a cost. And every time I see a butterfly dance past me, I'm reminded that that butterfly paid it. That butterfly was a caterpillar stuck to the ground, just a ground life, trying to, you know, hoping to cross the sidewalk without somebody stepping on it. That kind of life. And now this butterfly is flying, but it paid a price to do that. And that whole cocoon situation is to me akin to you and I figuring out what's possible for me. How can I transform even under these conditions? And what can still lie ahead for me? You you know what? You don't like see a whole bunch of butterflies together. um, you know, you normally see a single butterfly flying by, but they look as carefree and unbothered and beautiful as they do it. So, this is just to encourage you. Loneliness in motherhood is not new. You're not a freak. You're not strange. You are on a journey. And sometimes you do that journey with a group, and there's some parts of the journey that you do by yourself. But all of the aspects of the journey are opportunities to grow. We grow in the presence of other people, but we also grow in those moments when we're by ourselves. Don't discount them. Don't um, see them as an indictment against you, like something is wrong with you. See them as another opportunity to sprout your wings and to see where you can soar. So that's what I'm doing. I hope this video has been an encouragement to you. It's uh it's been cool to record it. This is not if the people who know me would just be so shocked by this video. But again, what's possible for me now, what I'm seeing is possible, is to be vulnerable, is to um, pull back the mask. I'm one of those people in my friend circle, or just people who just come across me, or the fact that it said Dr. Vanessa on the screen. People just tend to think that because I'm a pediatrician, like for some, like somehow I have it all together. But if you have watched any of my other videos, you know how miraculous it is that I'm a mom, even how miraculous it is that I'm a pediatrician. But that does not excuse me from life. It does not excuse me from the issues that are common to people. But there's just something about me where I'm just like, this thing ain't gonna beat me. I don't like it. It's not fun. But what can I get out of this? If I'm going to go through it, I want it to be something that there's something positive in it. Um, Myron Golden talks about. He often talks about, that if where there's a positive, there's always a negative, and vice versa. There's two sides to everything. You can't have a one-sided coin. You can't have a one-sided pancake. Like he goes through all these things, and the tendency, my tendency, just temperament wise, my tendency is to see the glass half empty, is to focus on what is not, what others are doing, what I'm not doing, why am I not doing that? And I have just really challenged myself to flip that and to consider, okay, but what does it make possible? What is the flip side of this? I am well aware of, how loneliness can suck. I'm well aware of that. But what does that time alone afford me? What are the treasures in me that can be discovered when my world is less noisy? And if, if you're alive and breathing, you're aware of how noisy the world is and how it just gets noisier by the day. And so maybe loneliness is a gift. Maybe seasons where you don't have somebody to go get up and run with and somebody to go do this with, where you have actual quiet time. Maybe if you don't use it to scroll and lose yourself and try to ignore the fact that you feel lonely, and maybe if you use that time for some self discovery, there is no telling what treasure you'll find inside, and how, if you unlock that, who you can become, and how that will bless other people when this season of loneliness is over and then you're able to connect with others. Just inviting you to think of things a different way and to find the good, to find the treasure. That's a phrase that I use to remind myself, find the treasure in this. You might have to dig. I tell my daughter all the time, she's a gem. And there is no gem that is just laying on the ground unless somebody dropped their ring or dropped their earring. But a gem that's not mounted, that's uncut, that's in its natural state, is buried. It is buried. It is buried in dirt. It is in rock. It has to be chiseled out. You got to go for that thing. And you have to consider, you have to live a life that considers the possibility that even in this hard thing, even in this messy, dirty thing, there can be a gem in there. And if I'm going to be in this situation, I may as well try to find it. So I hope you find the treasure in your lonely season because it's there. And until next time, please remember when it comes to you being the mother of your children, you are the woman for the job. There's no one else. You're perfect for the job. So go do it. Take care.